Good to see everybody, and I have a question to ask. How is everybody doing with the time change? I am not doing very well with it at all. It usually takes me a couple of weeks to get it right, but I usually am a little slow, a little irritable, so I manage to try and keep my temper under control. But unfortunately, earlier in this week, something happened. I got called to a property because there was unpermitted work going on. And with the individual that was in the home, we had a confrontation. A rather angry one. Hopefully he was younger than I, and hopefully it didn't come to anything physical or I wouldn't be standing here. So it was strictly verbal. I went verbal myself. But after he left, his father came out. And his father was explaining to me his son was an Army veteran, served in Afghanistan, and suffered from PTSD. Well, the moment I heard that, I had this tremendous, overwhelming sense of compassion. And the reason I had the compassion, because when I was released from active duty from the service, I also suffered it. Maybe not to the degree that he did, but I understood it. And I understood what he was suffering from. And that's what's kind of led to the title of my sermon today, A Soldier's Hope. But I want to kind of take you to 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 3. It says, "You therefore must endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ." There's a difference between this and the warfare that we understand on this earth. With God, with 2 Timothy, we understand the mission. The mission is very, very clear. We know the end result of it. But not so here in with the warfare on the earth, this physical warfare that we understand. Because in the two graphics I have, if you would go there, Dave, how does PTSD work? What is it? As you can see here on the graphic on which would be your right, it's incremental. It's slow. It works its way into you, and it gets deep within you. It roots in, as you can see what's going on with this one soldier. Unfortunately, there is no help for you when you're at this beginning stage of it. But then when you come to this stage, this is the one that everybody sees. This is the one that I understand. You put this mask on. This mask is to let people know, I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm okay. I don't need the help that you're telling me. But what's going on behind the mask? What's going on is, I'm going to try to explain it to you the best way that I can. You are emotionally a train wreck. You're adrift. Your feet aren't on the ground. You're trying desperately to get something to anchor you. And you have triggers. There's anger. That's the most prominent problem with PTSD, is the anger. The anger runs deep, and it has triggers. That's why you've got to be careful. Had I known that this soldier was suffering from this PTSD, I would have handled it entirely different. Knowing the triggers. I hit the trigger, and I got the result of it. But the desperation that's involved with it is so hard to explain, because you can't put PTSD in a basket and say, this is PTSD. Because it has many faces. It depends what trauma you were exposed to. Mine in particular was hatred. Yeah, because I was serving there in Vietnam. It was the hatred from the people that lived in this country. I wasn't going to flee like a lot of them did. I served. And the hatred that was expressed towards me was beyond what I could handle. And therefore, my hatred was a hatred for them that hated me. And I didn't realize how bad it was until I got out. I could not establish myself. I could not get back to a normal life, to what I had before. It was troublesome, very much so. This, very, very real. So the question would be, what help did you have, Jeff? And I can tell you, I've told you before, my best friend, we were surfing buddies, he knew I was suffering. That's when he put together this surfing adventure to the west coast of Mexico. Little to my knowledge did I know I was going to run into God. And I did. It was through a Plain Truth magazine. And let me tell you something. That experience was so strong, so intense, that it focused me. I found my feet on the ground. I had an interest, and I pursued it. But that's not always the case for all these soldiers. And one of the most important things they have to come to is they have to admit, I need help. It's hard to come to that point because of what they're suffering. And unfortunately, there are some that come to that realization, they get the help they need. There's others that just struggle with it, and they struggle, and they cannot come to that point where they say, I need help. And then the worst of it all is suicide. Suicide is high amongst veterans who suffer from it. Because even with the VA clinic I go to in Okeechobee, there are still Vietnam veterans there who are going through therapy in dealing with it. But how can I tell them? Your answer is God. What do you do? I mean, see, and that's what brings me to these two scriptures, because when I read these, it's in Isaiah 32, verses 17 and 18. It says, the effect of righteousness will be peace. Can you have the understanding of what that word peace means to someone who is suffering from PTSD? Peace of mind. What torments you is gone. It's suppressed to a point where you have that peace. And it says, and the result of righteousness will be quietness. The beauty of having a quiet mind. It's no longer there tormenting you. And then it says, and confidence forever. What is this confidence that it's making a reference to? It's that confidence to go on with life. To put that trauma behind you. Get on with your life, falling in love, raising a family, career, living a good, normal life. These words are words of gold to someone who is suffering from that condition. And then it continues, my people will live in peaceful dwellings, in secure homes, and in undisturbed resting place. That is heaven to someone who is suffering from PTSD. That is heaven. And I can't get this soldier off my mind. And I'm saying, how am I going to deal with him? Because of my conversation with his father has a much deeper understanding of it now. And I tell him, your son has to come to the point and admit he needs help. And if and when he gets there, I would like to be part of that. Since this is something I've suffered myself, and I understand it and what it does to you. Someone who has never had that experience does not know what it does to you. It takes the experience of it to understand it, hopefully to help someone else. So basically, I tied this to Passover because we have a commander-in-chief. Our commander-in-chief is Jesus Christ. He had a mission. He accomplished that mission. And it cost him his life so that we may survive, that we may live on into eternity. So what does that mean to me? It means that through these verses, I know my commander-in-chief is coming back. And he's bringing this with him. He's bringing that peace. He's bringing that quietness. He's bringing that undisturbed resting place for these soldiers that have suffered. But we must also keep in mind that we are also soldiers. We're in a warfare. And you'll find that in Ephesians 6, verses 10 through 17. I had to get this off my chest because did it stir up some emotion? Yes, it did. Something I haven't experienced in a long time. But I know and understand my commander-in-chief brought me that peace. And he will bring this same peace to all of us when he returns. So brethren, stay in the fight. And understand that when he comes back, you will have that peace and that undisturbed resting place.